Hello, everybody. Hello. Can you guys in the back hear me okay? Can you hear me back there? Yes. Okay, good. I'd heard there were some issues with that. So it's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to be with you guys. I'd rather be someplace warm, like where I came from. I'm not really used to the weather here. 12 years in the tropics will do that to you. So we're going to be talking today about hydration. And this is a really important topic. And it's one I think that's pretty well largely misunderstood. And I'll tell you a little bit about how I came to understand it myself. As some of you may know, how many of you are familiar with me? Anybody? Not too many of you. Okay, good. It's more fun that way. Thank you. So, for the last 20 and a half years, I've run the Tanglewood Wellness Center, which is the world's largest water-only fasting center. And we're located in Costa Rica. And over the last 20 plus years, I've taken thousands of people through water fasts. And if you're new to this is going to blow your mind a little bit, averaging 26 days. This is 26 days average consuming only water. Okay? And I know some of you probably came here today thinking, if I skip lunch today, I'll probably die. Right? But the fact is that, like every other species, we carry fat reserves primarily so that we can survive in the absence of food. Because in nature, sometimes there are droughts and fires and floods and other conditions which make food unavailable. Okay? And so the average person actually has a 6 to 8 week reserve of nutrients and could go that long if they were doing what they needed to do. Now, why would someone do this? Why would anybody go that long without eating? I don't know either. No, the reason why is simple. If you look at nature, what you see is that virtually every one of the roughly 600,000 animal species, when sick enough or badly enough injured, will lie down and stop eating. And the reason they do it is simple. Processing food through our bodies takes more energy than anything else we do. When the body needs to cleanse or heal, it needs every single bit of energy possible to do that as effectively and as efficiently as it can. And so what happens when we get sick is we tend to lose our appetite. Have you noticed that? You've experienced that, right? Now, your mom told you had to eat anyway. And we got into the habit of doing that. But the fact is, our virtually infinitely intelligent bodies know, I've got a microphone buried under there, our bodies know that in order to cleanse and heal themselves as efficiently as they can, they don't want to have to process food. Okay? So, this talk isn't about fasting today, but it's important to understand where I'm coming from, what my experience has been. Okay? And so before we go on, I'll just share a little bit about our results with you, because what we do is amazing, and I feel incredibly blessed to be able to do what I've been doing for so long. Over the last 20 years, we've worked with more than 300 people with hypertension, high blood pressure. I don't know if you're aware of this. If you know anyone with hypertension, anyone here know anyone with hypertension? If you're over 50, you certainly do, don't you? People with hypertension are told you have to take these drugs for a little while, right? No, for the rest of your life. Because medicine says there's no way to heal hypertension. We have 100% success healing hypertension with more than 300 people. We have 100% success healing type 2 diabetes. We have very high rates of success with multiple sclerosis, with Lyme disease, with lower GI tract problems, with arthritis, with virtually everything. Because while this is largely unknown to most human beings today, the human body is an unbelievably intelligent organism intended to cleanse and heal itself. It doesn't work very well for most people most of the time. Why not? Well, the bottom line is that we're not giving our bodies the conditions and the opportunity that they need in order to do what they're intended to do. Okay, so if you're sitting here today and you're not experiencing perfect health, it's not your body's fault. Okay, because your body doesn't get to decide what goes in your pie hole. Okay, how much sleep, exercise you get. Whether you're drinking enough water or not. Whether you're getting enough sunlight. Or you guys remember that sun, right? You don't get that much of it here, I think. These are the critically important aspects of meeting your body's needs. And when your body is not having all of its needs met, it's never going to be able to manifest an amazingly high level of health. But alternatively, and this is the really cool news, when you're meeting your body's needs as well as possible, an amazing level of health is the inevitable result. It's what will happen. Okay? So if you're not already experiencing an amazing level of health, all you need to do is figure out how to better meet all of your body's needs and watch what happens. It's incredible. Now, one of the things that we see a lot of when people are fasting is detoxification. And it becomes rather obvious that this is what's going on when you understand a little bit about the process. Okay? People come in smelling more or less like people, and after 4 or 5 days, they start to smell like other things. Sometimes like dead, rotting carcasses or garbage dumps. Because frankly, most people are garbage dumps. The average body has been the repository for all kinds of garbage for a long time. And when the body's cleansing itself, you can tell that's what's going on. Okay? Sometimes we see things moving out of the body which look like they've been there since the prehistoric times. And while in most cases it probably hasn't been 50 or 100,000 years, in many cases it's been 10, 20, or 30 years. And you can tell because this stuff is hard and dry and foul. And so detoxification is what most people are focused on, right? Healing the body when it needs to heal and cleansing the body of all the garbage that's accumulated. Most people who are aware of fasting or have been around fasting for years would suggest that the biggest issue to human health is toxicity. In fact, there's a school of philosophy called natural hygiene. Anyone familiar with this? Natural hygiene? Because natural hygiene says that there's only one disease. Okay? Only one. It can show up in lots of different ways, but what's always going on where there's disease, where there's a lack of health, is toxicity. And having taken thousands of people from 89 countries so far through this process, I can tell you that virtually everyone's body is toxic. There's no doubt about it. And it's not hard to imagine how this could be so. In fact, up till about 30 or 40 years ago, the hygienists were still saying, and maybe some of them still do, they would say that although the world is a toxic place, the greatest sources of toxins in the average body are what are called endogenous toxins. What this means are toxins that are created inside the body. You see, every one of your 500 trillion cells is like an independent organism. It needs to feed, it needs to process that food, it needs to eliminate waste. But in order for it to get the waste out of the body, it needs to have the energy and the water to move that stuff out on. Because all toxins are eliminated from the body through 5 primary channels. Okay? The channels are the colon, the urinary tract, the skin, the breath, the mucous membranes. What these 5 channels have in common is that they all depend on water. They all depend on water. If there's not enough water, nothing is going to move. Okay? So toxicity, it occurred to me about 12 years ago, and I'll tell you how I came to this conclusion. It occurred to me that maybe toxicity was largely not the cause, but actually an effect of dehydration. I came across a book maybe 15 or 18 years ago that some of you may have read called Your Body's Many Cries for Water. Anyone see this book? Your Body's Many Cries for Water. You know it? Yeah? There was a woman out waiting at her earlier today with me who had a Batman shirt on. Where'd you go? There you are. Yeah. Yeah, I was like, that's cool. See, I came across this book, Your Body's Many Cries for Water, and I thought, I've got to buy this book because it's written by a guy called Dr. Batman. His actual name is Batman Gelage, Iranian, but because no one could ever say his name, everyone called him Dr. Batman. And Dr. Batman practiced for 30 or 40 years outside of Washington, D.C., where I'm originally from. And he worked with people with all kinds of different conditions. And he got them to feel much better by simply consuming a lot more water, because he believed that dehydration was a major problem. As it turns out, there's a lot more research today that shows what happens, how the body stops functioning like it's supposed to when we're dehydrated. And virtually every single aspect of our being is affected by dehydration in really significant ways. So the next time you're feeling a bit cranky, okay, maybe you're just dehydrated because it has a massive impact on your emotions. If you want to feel good and balanced all the time, you have to be hydrated. Okay? It affects your thinking. One study suggests that a 1% drop in hydration creates a 5% decrease in cognitive functioning. That's massive, especially since the average person is not 1% dehydrated, but much, much, much more than that. So I read this book and I thought, wow, he's got some great ideas here. He's onto something. And I started thinking about this, and it was sometime maybe 5 years after the book, we went to replace our scale. We had moved from the US to Central America. We needed a new scale, and I went out looking for a scale. And I found something, maybe you've seen these, I had never seen it before. It was a scale that would actually tell you what your muscle mass, body fat, and hydration was. Okay? This is called bioimpedance analysis. And I've got some bad news for you. If you picked up a $30 bathroom scale that does this for you, it's not going to be very accurate. Okay? I've worked with a lot of people using these kinds of inexpensive devices, and they don't give very good information. You typically do get more or less what you pay for. But we're now working with the 4th generation of these devices, and our scale runs around $500 US. And it's pretty accurate. They claim to be 99.9% accurate. By the way, if you're not familiar with the technology at all, it was actually invented by an American inventor. The US military came to him and said, we need a way to ensure that military personnel in desert conditions are safe, that they're not too dehydrated. So this was intended as a way to measure hydration. And so when our guests come in, when they arrive at the center in Costa Rica, one of the first things we do is we measure their hydration level. And then we check it every week, once a week. We check it again before they leave. And in fact, when we got the first device, we were closed. We operate now in 10-week sessions. So we were closed in one of these breaks, and who was there with me were some staff members and students of mine who had all fasted with me in the previous 2 to 12 months. They'd all undergone fasts of at least 21 days. And since that point in time, they'd been eating an optimal diet because that's all we offered. Okay? And that makes all the difference in the world, by the way. We're going to talk about that later on. But we measured all these people, and the device said that everyone there was between 70, I think, and 77% hydrated. And I thought, okay, that's pretty good, because what I understood from reading was that the human body should be around 70 to 75% water. Now, many experts say adults only 60% or 65%. Okay? That's because that's what's normal, not what's healthy. Now, we opened about a week after we took these readings. And at the time, we had 14 beds. We now have 26. And we measured 14 people's hydration levels. And I thought, oh, this thing's a piece of crap. It doesn't work. Because we were getting readings like 60%, 50%, even down into the high 30s. And I thought, this can't be right. How could somebody possibly be alive if they had half as much water in their body as their body was supposed to have? It didn't make sense to me. And as I said, we've had several generations of devices now. None of the manufacturers have helped me understand this, but I finally figured it out about 10 years ago. What I realized was that what the device is doing, what all the device claims to do, is to tell you what percentage of your mass is water. Well, isn't that enough? It's not. And the reason it's not is because body fat doesn't contain any water. Not to speak of a tiny, tiny amount. So for instance, in our last session, we had a young man from the US who came to us, and he was more than 400 pounds when he showed up. Okay? He was tall, a couple inches taller than me, but he was still dramatically overweight, more than twice as heavy as he should have been. Which means he was carrying mostly body fat. I don't remember the percentage now, but it was more than 60 or 65% of his body was fat. Well, if that fat contains no water, then the water in his body as a percentage of the mass would have to be very low. Do you understand? Right? If 2/3 of his mass has no water in it, even if the 1/3 that was left was 100% water, which wouldn't be possible, he would only be roughly 33% water. So that's what we're seeing with these people. What we were seeing was that their very low numbers were reflecting their body composition, too much body fat, which is fairly common today in the UK as well as in the US. What I realized is we could correct for this by calculating what percentage of the lean tissue was water. And so that's what we've been doing. Now what we see is that the average person comes in with their lean tissue roughly 68% water. Not bad if you measure it against the supposed 60 to 65% that many experts say the adult human body should be. But there's a problem with that. The problem is that we've actually seen people who are higher than that. And what occurred to me was that if someone can be higher, why can't everyone be higher? If it's possible for one body to be 80%, the lean tissue, 80% water, why can't everyone's body be 80% water, lean tissue? Okay? So, and even when we correct for body fat, we find people who are coming in at around 60% water. Now, if 80% is what's possible, 60% means that they are 25% dehydrated. What's the effect on their cognitive function? What's the effect on their emotions? What's their effect on their body's ability to create energy? Because we create energy primarily through the pressure that occurs as water moves through the cell. We're actually running on microelectric current. Did you know that? Okay, we're running on electricity, not food. It's electricity. Our body takes the food and uses it to make energy. The food is the fuel, but it's not the energy. If you're dehydrated, you're going to feel very tired, okay? Because your body's not able to produce the energy that it needs. It's not able to transport the garbage out of the cells, and it's not able to transport the nutrients in. It's not able to do anything that it was intended to do properly. This is what happens in a dehydrated body. Now, so far, in the 11 years that we've been measuring hydration, every single person who's come to us has been dehydrated to some degree. And I'll point something out in case it hasn't occurred to you. The people that we see, the people that come to me to get well or weller, as is sometimes the case, because not everyone that comes to us is sick. Some people that come to us are people who are well, but they want to be as healthy as possible. How many of you would like to be as healthy as possible? You're not interested in that? You are. Yeah. I think we all want that, right? Now, I think the truth is that a lot of people aren't willing to do what they need to do to actually create that. Because wanting something and actually being committed to having it are two very different things. So if you notice, by the way, not just here but anywhere in your life, that you don't have things that you really want, you might want to take a look and see what you're actually committed to. Okay? If you're committed to getting healthy, you can do it. It's actually not rocket science. Okay? It's fairly simple. Meet your body's needs, it'll happen. So, we've seen amazing changes occur as a result of this process. And what I began to realize more and more was hydration was the key. So if you listen to the medical experts, they'll tell you, for instance, there's no old stuff in the body. It's not there. They've got, how many of you have had a colonoscopy? How many of you had one and enjoyed it? I didn't think so. There's always that one guy in the back, right? They say, we've been in the colon, there's nothing in there. And I can't argue with that because I haven't been in the colon and don't have any plans to go. But every person who's fasted with us, thousands of people, wind up eliminating old hard material. Has anybody here ever eaten just fruit or just fruit and salad for any period of time? Yeah? Quite a few of you. That's cool. I'm trying that diet myself. Not sure if it works yet. It's only been 25 years so far. We'll see. As you know, when you're only eating fruit and salad for some period of time, your bowel movements are quick, painless, easy, odor-free, and clean, right? You know what I'm saying? You go to wipe, there's almost nothing there. Okay? You save a lot of money on toilet paper eating this way. I think the last time I bought toilet paper was in 1997, something like that. When people are eliminating stuff that's hard and dry and painful and foul-smelling, you know it's not the watermelon and papaya that they're currently eating. You can tell. True? Okay? So we see, without exception, people eliminating this old stuff. But it's interesting, it only happens when they're getting enough water. Now, for instance, I got an email about a year ago. I just put a video up on my YouTube channel. But if you're interested in more information, by the way, I've got 400 plus videos on my YouTube channel talking about health and how to get healthy. And I put this video up, and I got an email from this woman. She said, Loren, she said, I don't think we ever met, but I was at a dinner, and I can't remember the name of the town. It was some hoity-toity tennis club in Southern California where they'd had a dinner, and I was the after-dinner entertainment. I'd given a lecture that night, much like this one. And she said, I was there that night 15 or 16 years ago, and I heard you talking about fasting, and I've been fasting myself ever since. She said, I'm on the 10th day of a fast right now, and I'm having some issues, and I thought maybe you could help me. And I saw from your video that you do consultations via Skype. I never knew you did that. She'd never come to me because she didn't feel like she could afford to. So she was doing this on her own. Now, I work with people all the time to help them fix the issues they've created by fasting on their own. because it can be challenging and tricky. You have to know what you're doing. And think about this. It's a completely natural process, like childbirth. It's a natural process. But because most people have never done it, and no one they know has ever done it, and it's something we don't have any knowledge of anymore, most people don't know how to do it correctly. So, ladies, if you have a baby, how many of you would have considered giving birth without having a doula or a midwife or anybody around that knew what they were doing? Not too many. Yeah, some, but not too many. Okay? It usually goes better when you have someone there that can guide you safely through the process. Even if just so you can feel better. Even if just so you can be more confident knowing that you're okay. Because this is new territory. So, I said to her, I wrote back and I said, sure, I can talk with you tomorrow at 9 o'clock your time. And she wrote back and said, no, I'll be busy then for several hours. Now, fasting is about resting as completely as possible. So if you're fasting, you should be lying in bed with your eyes closed as much as you possibly can. You shouldn't be out. You shouldn't be traveling. You shouldn't be doing anything you don't need to do, because the entire point is to conserve energy so your body can use that energy to cleanse and heal. If you're living your life without taking fuel in, how's your body going to have enough energy to do everything? It won't. It won't. Okay? So we finally agreed to a time, and I spoke to her the next afternoon, and I said to her, what were you so busy doing for several hours on the 11th day of a fast? She said, I was out shopping. I said, shopping? What do you mean? She's like, well, I just live my life when I fast. I just live my normal life. I said, no, you've got to be resting. So she told me what's going on. What was going on was she had some pain in her belly. She was feeling some discomfort. And I said, well, my guess is that you're beginning to rehydrate some old material sitting in your digestive tract. And she said, no, that's impossible. I said, what do you mean? She said, well, ever since I heard you speak all those years ago, I've been following your diet as closely as possible. And I've fasted 10 times. How could I have any old stuff still in my body? I said, well, have you ever eliminated old hard material? And she said, no. I said, well, in that case, it's still in your body. Okay? Because if it had come out, you would have known it. If you haven't witnessed it coming out, it hasn't come out yet. She said, I don't believe you. I said, well, it's okay. You just paid me $100. You do whatever you want with the information. My suggestion is that for the rest of your fast, you rest as completely as possible and you sip ample amounts of water. And sipping is important. We're going to talk about why that is in just a minute. So you have to sip the water. Okay, and you have to drink much more. She told me how much she was drinking. I don't remember now, but it wasn't enough. So I said, you need to sip your water and you need to drink more of it. Now, I didn't expect to ever hear from her again. 5 days later, she emails me and says, I can't believe it. I've had 5 large, old, hard bowel movements since we spoke. 5 days of drinking the water she needed to. Okay? It makes all the difference in the world. So why is it important to sip water? How many of you drink plenty of water every day? Some of you don't. Okay? And how much water are you drinking? 3 liters? How many? 2 liters a day? Okay. Anybody else? 1 a day? Okay. So, how much water each person needs varies from person to person. It's not like there's a fixed amount. You cannot take your weight in ounces and you can't, there's no formula that's going to tell you what you need. Okay, what I've learned to do, what I figured out how to do, having fasted all these people, is to properly interpret daily vital signs. Now, it's critical when someone's fasting. I wouldn't be taking daily vital signs for someone that wasn't fasting. But when someone's fasting, their water intake is critically important. Because if they don't get enough water, the body simply can't do what it needs to do. Remember, every single channel of elimination depends on water. So the stuff can't get moved out of the body. If they get too much water, what happens? Anybody? Well, what happens when we drink water is we flush out electrolytes. Let me see if I can illustrate this. Okay, here's a full bottle of water, but let's pretend the bottle is half full. Okay? And let's say this is actually blood. This is the bloodstream. And it's half full, because that's all we need. And then we drink a bunch of water. What happens to the water? Where does the water go when we drink? Anyone know? It's absorbed directly into the bloodstream. Okay? It doesn't go through your digestive tract like food does. It's absorbed into the bloodstream. What happens if we take a whole bunch of water in at one time? Let's say we were to fill the bottle up. It was half full. Now it's full. Okay? So first of all, what would happen to the concentration of electrolytes in the bloodstream? Anybody? Well, before they're flushed out, they're still in here, but what happened to them, to the concentration? It would be diluted by how much? By half. It's been diluted by 50% because we have the same amount of sodium and potassium and magnesium, etc., phosphorus that we had before, but now it's in twice as much liquid. And the body says, that's too much, I don't need that much. If the body doesn't, you're not going to have too much blood. What the body's going to do is it's going to get rid of any liquid it doesn't need. What happens when it throws off that 50% of the liquid is we lose half the electrolytes. But we don't lose them all permanently, because your body is too intelligent for that. What happens is, it's filtered off into your urinary tract, into the bladder, and then your kidney's job is, before it lets go of everything, it reclaims all the electrolytes that it can. So it's not losing them. And your kidneys are 100% efficient, right? Nothing's 100% efficient. Okay? It's impossible. There's always some loss. So when you're not eating, if you're drinking too much water, you're losing electrolytes all the time. You could potentially get in trouble. Okay? So it doesn't work if you don't drink enough. It doesn't work very well if you drink too much. You have to really know what you're doing. It's critically important. When you get the right amount of water, amazing things happen. Now, why is it important to sip water? Well, for the same reason we just talked about. If you take the water in quickly, how many of you wake up in the morning and guzzle a liter of water? Just take it right down. Okay. So what's happening is, it's going into your bloodstream, your body instantly says, this is a problem, flushes it out, taking electrolytes with it. Now, if you're eating every day, it's not that big a deal because you can replace the electrolytes. But you can probably see it's not a very efficient thing to do. You're constantly putting your body into this position where it has to rebalance itself. Okay? What we're intended to do is not to guzzle tons of water. Think about this. Many of you have probably realized that walking around the UK in your birthday suit 12 months of the year, even in early April, might not be so comfortable. Okay? Why do you think that is? It's because it's damn cold out there. These are easy ones. They're going to get harder later. The bottom line is that we are tropical animals. Okay? We're intended to be walking around in our birthday suits in the tropics, not here in the UK. Now, human beings have covered the entire planet, and we're intelligent enough to do that, but we're still tropical animals. The reason some of you, like I, have 3 layers on today, right, and we're inside a building, is because right here in the center of the torso, it has to be about 95 degrees Fahrenheit all the time. If it doesn't, we tend to have issues. Now, there are people, like Wim Hof, who've learned how to control that. And he didn't invent this. For many, many years, there have been yogis who would have ice water poured over their heads sitting in freezing cold weather and be perfectly fine. Okay? Maybe you could learn to do that too, but most of us haven't figured that out yet. Okay? If someone did that to most of us, what would happen is we would die of hypothermia. Okay? It doesn't work very well. So we're tropical animals. Now imagine that you're living in the tropical jungle and you're thirsty. You're living like another animal, another species. You don't have bottles of water. You don't have glasses. You don't have pitchers. You don't have canteens. What do you have? You have a stream. And so you go to the stream, you get on your hands and knees, you cup your hands, and you lift them to your mouth. How much water do you actually get into your mouth? Not very much. Imagine if you actually needed to get 3 or 4, and I'm guessing most people probably need 4 liters a day. Imagine trying to get 4 liters or more per day through your cupped hands. You'd spend all day on your knees at the stream. You wouldn't have time to do much else like eat, okay, sleep, things that are kind of useful from time to time. So this brings up a really important question. If we need to drink 4 liters of water per day, how could we have ever done that when we were living in nature? And if we come back to Dr. Batman, okay, you know, most of you, I'm probably speaking to the converted already here, most of you probably realize that Western medicine only suppresses symptoms. Everyone clear about that? I don't know if you're aware of this, but the leading cause of death today in the US and the UK is still heart disease. Number 2 is cancer. Number 3 is called Iatrogenic Disease. Ever heard of that? Iatrogenic disease is the 3rd leading cause of death in our culture. And what it means is the mistakes of doctors in medicine. Doctors kill more people than anything besides cancer and heart disease. Okay? Now, most people don't die from medicine, but nobody ever gets well from it either. And you want to be clear about this, because what taking toxic substances like drugs into your body can do is it can suppress symptoms. And that's good, right? Well, there's always that one guy in the back, but nobody else wants to experience pain, right? Most of us don't like pain. So if someone can give you something to make you feel better, you're probably glad to have it. But there's a problem. The problem is, there's a couple problems. 1, the symptom is not the problem. The symptom is actually just a symptom. It's not the problem. We interact with symptoms like they are the problem. Okay, but they're not. The second problem is that the symptom is not only not the problem, it's actually part of the solution. Symptoms are evidence that your body is cleansing or healing. If you suppress the symptom, you eliminate the body's best way of dealing with something. Let me give you an example. You ever wake up with a head full of mucus? You had this experience? Raise your hand if you've had this experience. Everyone's had this at some point, right? So what do most people do when this happens? They go into their bathroom, they walk to the medicine cabinet, they take something out. Most people already own the products, right? They swallow something, and in 30 to 120 minutes, the mucus is gone. They take something to eliminate the mucus, to dry it up. And they feel better, and they think that they are better. But we need to ask an important question. Why was the mucus there in the first place? Why did your body create this mucus? Anybody? Maybe it just didn't like you. Your body creates the mucus to encapsulate and help you more rapidly eliminate something that's harmful to you. If you get rid of the mucus, how does your body get rid of that substance? Not very well. So we take these drugs, could be prescription, could be over the counter. What happens is we still have the original substance the body was trying to get rid of, and now we have the drug as well. We're more toxic than we were before. Can you see this? Does this make sense? It's not helping us. Okay, we feel better, but we're trading off feeling better now for long-term health. And every single time we do this, we're creating a much bigger problem, because the chronic diseases that kill people here in England are created by suppressing symptoms. Every time we do this, the body becomes more toxic, and this is where these chronic diseases come from. If, instead of doing that, if our entire lives, every time the body needed to eliminate something, we simply allowed it to do what it needed to do, we would never have chronic disease. There would be no heart disease. There would be no cancer. There would be no diabetes. These conditions would never develop if we allowed the body to cleanse and heal on an ongoing basis. This is what's possible. You know, I usually start out when I'm speaking, I like to tell people right up front, because I think it's important that you know this. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a nutritionist. I have no professional credentials. No pieces of paper that say I can do what I do. The only credentials I have is that I've helped thousands of people take their health to the highest level they've ever experienced. And that may or may not be enough for you. That's up to you. Okay? In fact, I started on my journey when I got sick myself, 33, nearly 34 years ago. I graduated from college, and within 6 months was sicker than anybody I knew. Chronic fatigue syndrome, irritable bowel syndrome, chronic candidiasis, chronic sinusitis, and 57 allergies. I'd never had one before. Now, some of you, many of you, are too young to remember this, but 34 years ago, if you went to a doctor and said, I think I have candida, they're like, that doesn't exist. What are you talking about? Chronic fatigue? That doesn't exist. That's not real. Irritable bowel syndrome? Just watch what you eat. And that advice actually worked pretty well. I felt fine as long as I didn't eat any food. Okay, if I ate any food at all, I felt really bad. And some of you probably know what I'm talking about. Okay? Because this is common. In our last group, we had 24 people, 24 clients there, and I said, how many of you are here at least partly because of digestive issues? And I think 90% raised their hand. All but 2 or 3 people. Okay, it's common. These are common issues today. So, I grew up outside of Washington, D.C. It's a very conservative town. All I knew was allopathic medicine, Western medicine. So I went to my doctor. And I was told, doesn't exist, doesn't exist, doesn't exist. Allergies, oh, we can treat those. Just bend over and get 57 shots. I was like, yeah, no thanks. I think I'll pass on that. I took the drugs for the sinusitis, by the way. What do you think they gave me for that? Anyone know? Steroids weren't really being given back then so much. Anybody else? Antibiotics. Ever think about this? Look at this word, antibiotic. What does it mean? Anti, against, bio, life, against life? Yeah, get some more of those? That sounds good. Who needs life anyway? See, antibiotics are intended to kill bacteria. That's a good idea, right? Well, actually, I don't know if you realize this yet. I mean, I know that we have mothers here and fathers, and we have people from all different professions and all different walks of life. But you probably didn't realize that your primary responsibility is moving bacteria from point A to point B. It's estimated that you have 10 times more bacteria in your body than your own cells. So you're really doing more for them than you're doing for yourself, okay? We need these bacteria. We have a symbiotic relationship with them and can't survive without them. We can't survive. If we kill the bacteria, we feel better temporarily. Because without these bacteria, we don't have the symptoms. The symptoms occur when we're cleansing and healing. That's what they're doing for us. Okay? They're allowing the body to get rid of the garbage, some of the garbage. Because what they do is they consume dead and dying tissue. If we kill them, we have no way to get rid of that dead and dying tissue. We feel better temporarily, but what happens? We get much, much more toxic. Has there ever been a garbage strike here in London? Does that happen? Yeah? Back in 75. It was around the same time, I think, there was a garbage strike in New York City. For months, they stopped collecting garbage. It just piled up on the streets of the city. I had a client at one point who said she was there at the time, living there, and she lived on the 7th or 8th floor of an apartment building. They had to drop their garbage out the window because they couldn't throw it to the top of the pile. The piles had grown so high. Okay? The entire city was one big stinking mess because that's what happens when you can't get rid of the garbage. Let me give you another example of this that might help you understand. Anyone ever heard of Alexis Carrel? No? Carrel was a Nobel Prize-winning scientist who lived about 100 years ago. And one of the studies that he did, he took chicken heart tissue from the heart of a chicken, and he kept it alive in a petri dish. Anyone know how long a chicken lives? I don't mean at the factories, I mean in nature. I'm told that maybe 10, 20 years, maybe. Chicken heart tissue, this tissue survived in a petri dish for 32 years. And it only died when Carrel died. He died, and the next day, his research assistant neglected to change the fluid bath. You see, inside a living organism, the cells are responsible for getting rid of the garbage, the organism itself. But in a petri dish, there's no way to get the garbage out of the dish. And so the research assistants had to change that fluid bath every day, put clean water in. Okay? Carrel died. Everyone was grieving. They forgot to do it. The next day, the heart tissue was dead. One day, after one day of not changing the water, it was dead. That's what happens when the organism is surrounded by garbage. Okay? This is what's going on in the average human body all the time. And the reason why is because of a lack of water. There simply isn't enough water because the body can't get rid of the garbage without it. Does this make sense? Okay? So, we started seeing amazing things happen. Now, the only time it doesn't happen is when someone says, yeah, but I'm not thirsty. I don't want to drink anymore because I'm not thirsty. How many of you drink when you're thirsty? Most of you do, right? Your body says, I'm thirsty. You think that's a good time to drink. Makes sense. The problem is that when we drink when we're thirsty only to remove the thirst, it's too late because this is a late stage signal. We're missing all the earlier signs that we need water. Think about this. Every person we've seen has come in significantly dehydrated. If drinking when you're thirsty kept you hydrated, no one would be dehydrated. But it doesn't work very well. So if we go back to Dr. Batman, in typical fashion, he was looking at symptoms. Okay? I mean, what he figured was, well, people are dehydrated because they're not drinking enough water. What I found is, regardless of how much water one drinks, they're not going to get hydrated. It's not going to happen. Okay? Not drinking water, not that alone, that's not enough. Why not? Well, Had Dr. Batman asked the really important question, how did this happen in the first place? Again, if we lived in nature, we would never be able to drink the quantities of water people drink today. Therefore, it seems to me it's clearly not natural to do so. I'm not saying people don't need it, they do. But how do we get to this point where everyone needs to drink so much water? The answer lies within the diet. Okay, think about it. Have you guys ever eaten corn chips? You know, like Fritos, you know what these things are, right? I'm not sure what they're called here in the UK, but everyone familiar with corn chips? Yeah? Okay. How much water do you think they have in them? Zero. Let's be scientific, okay? Let's say 0 plus or minus 0. Now it's science, okay? 0 plus or minus 0. There's virtually no water in these things. When they come back out of your body, are they as dry as when they went in? You better hope not. That'd be kind of uncomfortable, wouldn't it? Okay? They go in completely dry, and they come out much wetter than that. Where's the water coming from? It's coming from your body. You're losing water every time you eat dry food. Okay? You're losing water. This is how people got so dehydrated. And until we get the old stuff out of the body, it's impossible to get hydrated. This might be the most important reason why we see the results we see with fasting. Because we're able to mobilize this stuff. In fact, it's interesting. Over the last year, I've seen 5 people who had all fasted at another fasting center within the same year and who didn't get the results they wanted. And most other places that fast people still tell people to drink when they're thirsty. So this woman who came in with all kinds of issues like fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue with pain, right? No, not much fun. She'd gone to one of these places. She was only drinking 4 or 5 cups of water per day. She left with the same symptoms, same issues she had when she came. She came to me and I said, how much old waste did you eliminate? She said, what do you mean? I said, old, hard material. So none. Well, that's going to change. Okay, but you're going to have to drink a lot more water. And so we monitored her carefully. She drank more than twice as much as she had done the previous fast. And she eliminated pounds and pounds of this stuff. Now, I know medicine says it doesn't exist, but last year in Denmark, there was a study published saying, in fact, it's common for people to have 5 to 10 kilos, 11 to 22 pounds of this old stuff in the body. And it's not surprising to me because 100% of the people I've worked with over the last 20 years have eliminated between 10 and 20 pounds of old material. And when they do, their lives change. Everything changes. Okay? If you want to create health, you have to deal with the underlying cause of the issue. You can't treat symptoms. If we actually figure out why we're dehydrated and then alter that, shift that, everything changes. So, however you choose to eat, okay, you may not choose to be a fruit-based raw vegan as I am, although I don't know why not. If you want your health, it's the best thing to do. Okay, it's the way to eat. But whatever you choose to do for yourself, whether you choose to include other things or not, you want to ensure that you're eating a high percentage of your food with things that contain a lot of water. High water content fruit, simple green salads. Because anything else you eat is taking water away from the body. Okay? After 3 years going to 3 different doctors, getting the same story over and over again, I walked away from medicine for good. The only exceptions have been for trauma. Like when I sliced my wrist in 2 places, not on purpose. It was a remodeling accident. Fell down a flight of concrete stairs, landed on a piece of sharp metal. My wrist bounced, came down again, severed my artery, severed all my flexor tendons, severed all the nerves to one side of my left hand. Was told that I might never have full use of my hand again, and that I'd be in physical therapy for 1 year. Guess what the first thing I did was, or didn't do, was I didn't eat. I fasted. I wanted my body to put all of its energy into healing my hand. And 7 weeks later, almost to the day, the hand rehab guy said, I don't know how to explain this. In 27 years of physical therapy, I've never seen this before. You're completely healed. You're done. Okay? When I was bitten by the most poisonous snake in Central America 5.5 years ago, I got no medical attention. I fasted only. Within 1 week, the swelling was gone, the pain was gone, I'm perfectly fine. Okay? When I broke both my knees, I fasted. 6 weeks later, I was beating the 20-something students of mine running up the hill. 6 weeks. Okay? It's amazing what your body can do when it's hydrated. Okay, hydration is the key. So in the meantime, whatever you choose, the most important thing you could do would be to do an extended therapeutic fast. Okay? And some of you, I get this, I understand. If someone says to you, you need something that they offer, you have every right to be skeptical about that. And if you believe I'm saying that to you just because that's what I do, I understand. The truth is, I walked away from a very lucrative business because I wanted to help people. And in 20 plus years now, I've never paid myself a salary. Not yet. Someday, I hope. Not yet. Okay, we focus on helping people. And I do what I do because I see the amazing things shift all the time. Like the guy that came to me last April, who'd been on pain medication for 27 years, since he was 18 years old. Because he had this incredible arthritis. And on the 5th day of his fast, he came to me and said, I don't know if I can continue on it, because you can't fast with drugs. So he stopped taking the pain medication, began fasting. 5 days in, he comes to me with tears in his eyes and says, I don't know if I can continue. I've never experienced this much pain before. So I gave him some techniques to deal with the pain. I got him through the next few days. He came back to me on the 10th day with tears in his eyes and said, this is the first day since I was 18. He's 46 now. I was 45 at the time. First day since I was 18 years old that I've had no pain, no medication. Okay? We see people getting better, reaching an amazing level of health all the time. For myself, with the exception of trauma medicine, the only kind of medicine I'll ever partake of again, I haven't been sick one single day in 30 years. Not one day. That's what's possible. Okay? Every one of you can feel and function better than ever, and hydration's the key. So, some things you can do. Stop eating dried food. No more bread, no more crisps, no more chips. You want to watch out for vinegar and salt. These things are taking water from your body, even dehydrated foods. Go ahead. Dehydrated foods. Yeah, even raw food, if it's dehydrated, unfortunately, it's going to take water away from you. How many of you, those of you that have eaten fruit for a while, have you ever had a meal of just bananas? Have you done that? Yeah? Just a few of you. When you eat just bananas, do you feel thirsty? Most people do. I mean, I've worked with thousands of people. Most people tell me if they just eat bananas, they feel like they need to drink some water. When you eat just watermelon or papaya or pineapple or mangoes or apples or oranges, do you need to drink water? No. What's the difference? It's only a few percentage points. Bananas are about 74% water. Apples are only 80 to 82%. Watermelon's 93, papaya's around 92. Okay? But somewhere around 80%, if your food has less water than that, you're taking water from your body and are going to have to drink to make it up or to get that stuff through your system. So be careful. I've got a piece of pie over there on hold. Okay? I'm not going to walk out of here without trying that stuff because it looks pretty good. But that's an exception for me. 360 days a year, I live on fruit. Pineapples, watermelons, mangoes, papayas, and simple salads. Make the other things the exception, not the rule. You're going to see a massive change. Drink more water. Sip. Little tiny bit at a time. Do it all day long. You will get to a point where you don't need to do that anymore. What do I mean? So over the last 11 years, we've been measuring people's hydration. There's one person who's been consistently much better hydrated than anyone else we've measured. Me. Okay, nearly 80% lean tissue. And this is why, at nearly 56, it's actually 1 month from today, I'll turn 56, I have almost no lines on my face. I still have better than 20/20 vision. Okay, I can still do things that lots of yoga teachers can't do because hydrated tissue is more flexible. Okay? Most of what we think of as aging is long-term chronic dehydration because your body's making choices. There isn't enough water for everything, and so it's taking water away from things that are not critical to your survival, like skin, eyes, discs, and joints, to ensure you have enough blood and that your heart, brains, lungs, liver, kidney, brain, thyroid, pancreas have what they need. Okay? Avoid those things that dehydrate you, get enough water, change your diet, and if you really want to take your health to an amazing level, come spend 4 to 6 weeks with us. It's a significant investment of your time and someone's money, yours or someone else's. And I guarantee you it's going to be worth it. And if that's really out of the realm of possibility for you right now, I also coach people via Skype. Every day here, I'm traveling on vacation, 2 or 3 hours on Skype every day, working with people all over the world. Okay? Do what you need to do to get the results you want. If you're committed, you can have whatever you choose to have. You just have to do what you need to. Now, if you're taking notes or have a really good memory, write this down. www.tanglewoodwellnesscenter.com. Say again?
Could you say that again?
Yep. Tanglewood, Tanglewood, Wellness Center, and that's the American spelling, CENTER. Okay? .com. And my email is Loren, Loren, at tanglewoodwellnesscenter.com. Now, if you go to the website on the homepage, there's a YouTube video, and you can follow that back to my YouTube channel. There's tons of information there. Tons. My email address is Loren at tanglewoodwellnesscenter.com. And if you email me, just tell me you were here today at Gathering of Minds, and I will send you a free ebook with tons of great information. Okay? No cost. It normally costs $20. It's free for you guys. Just remind me that you were here, and I'll be glad to give it to you, because I think it will help you. Okay? It's Loren, Loren. And if you have a schedule, my name is on there. Okay. Loren at tanglewoodwellnesscenter.com. How far over am I so far? Okay, good. So, does anybody have any questions? Yeah.
I'm a child of two parents who are still living, both have cancer, and it's something, I'm like in my late 40s now, and it's something that is like on my mind all the time. And I know, just from reading over the years, the toxins cause cancer. and trying to live.
Yeah, true.
It is,
It's true.
I think people have just ignored it for years, and I know people who died from cancer, and I think that if they've made their lifestyle choices after they got the cancer, they might still be alive today.
Yes.
Have you had much experience with cancer patients?
Yes. We've been very successful with cancer, not 100% because it depends on the situation. If someone comes to us with a late stage cancer, in some cases they're not going to survive no matter what they do. But in many cases, people will recover completely. I don't know if you're aware of this, but everybody in here, you have cancer cells forming in your body every single day. But only 50% of the people are actually going to wind up with cancer, with a problem. How does the other 50% avoid it? Well, the answer is that your immune system is strong enough, is healthy enough to be able to destroy those cancer cells as they form. But the point is that our bodies were intended to destroy these cells. When people develop cancer, it's because their bodies are already too toxic or too dehydrated to be able to deal with this stuff. If you change that underlying condition and give the body the chance to heal, it can. In the meantime, make the best choices that you can, that you're willing to, and focus on what you want to create. Stop thinking about cancer. Because if you think about cancer, and it probably worries you, you're creating it. So focus on feeling and functioning amazingly well every day instead, and you'll create that. Okay? And if I can help you, let me know. Okay? Yes, sir.
You talked several times about this old dead stuff. What is it? Why did it not go? Why did it stay?
What's the old stuff that I'm talking about coming out of the body? Biscuits? All that stuff that you've been eating your whole life that's not full of water or fiber. In a study in the US about 15 years ago, it said the average American was getting 96 to 97% of their calories from processed foods and animal products. Now, what processed foods and animal products have in common is a lack of fiber and in most cases a lack of water. Because in order to move stuff through your system, you have to have both water and fiber. And if those two things aren't present in sufficient quantity, it's not going to move. It's going to get stuck. That's what's in there. Okay? It's not the fruit and salad you've eaten that's getting stuck. It's the other stuff. And that's a problem. I'm going to come to you in just 1 second to think about this. Your comment, what's your name? Suki. Suki's comment, we've met before, haven't we? You look familiar. Suki's comment about cancer being caused by toxins is absolutely true. Okay? If someone smokes and they're constantly taking toxic particulate matter into their lungs, they're likely to develop lung cancer. If they chew tobacco, they've got a very high risk of mouth, gum, tongue, lip cancer. Okay? When highway patrolmen in the US, we've got these big long highways, and they would sit in their patrol cars with a radar gun on their lap, constantly leaking radiation, until they realized that these highway patrolmen had very high rates of testicular cancer because of exposure to the radar guns. Now they don't put them on their lap anymore. Okay? So it's exposure to toxic substances that's creating the problem. So if the average person's got tons of old waste sitting in their colon, what would you expect to see? Colon cancer. Fastest growing form of cancer over the last couple decades is colon cancer. No surprise. Okay? Cell phones, be careful. Wi-Fi, okay? If you've got Wi-Fi at home, and most of you do, turn it off. Buy some cables and plug in your computer instead. Wi-Fi is very harmful. You want to avoid as much of this radiation as possible. Okay? Yes, sir, you had a question back there.
What type of water should we drink? RO, alkaline, tap water? Suddenly there's such a difference.
Yeah, the question is, what type of water should you drink? I'm going to give you a big tip, a secret that'll help you with a lot of things. It's helped me over the last 20 or 25 years. Here it is. Anytime you're not sure, ask yourself a simple question. What would happen? What would I be doing? What water would I be drinking in this case if I lived in the tropical jungle? What's the answer? Creek water. Natural stream water. Now, there's a problem. A lot of the groundwater has been polluted, so you have to find clean sources of spring or stream water. But what works for every other species will surely work for us too. Do we need alkaline water? Absolutely not. Okay? Did you know that bases burn more than acids? So water, which is a pH of 11, neutral is 7, acid is anything under 7. Water with a pH of 11 harms the tissue more than water with a pH of 3. They're both 4 points away from neutral. You should not be drinking alkaline water. In nature, water is typically anywhere between around 6 and 8 pH. Works just fine. Taking in water that's more alkaline does not make your body more alkaline, any more than eating things that are acidic, like oranges, makes your body more acidic. It's how the body interacts with those substances. You do not need alkaline water. It's a scam. Okay, you don't need to do it. You do not want to drink distilled water. Yes, it's the purest water you can probably get. So pure that it's devoid of the electrolytes that your body needs to move that water across cell membranes. In order to move the water across cell membranes, it's going to take the electrolytes from your bloodstream because it can't use the water otherwise. Distilled water has been shown to harm every organism it's given to, plant and animal alike. Don't use it. Hello?
I just heard you say with regards to distilled water, not having electrolytes, I understand that. My concern is, once a tap has a load of impurities in it, is there a way to take distilled water and re-electrolyte it?
Yeah, the question is, okay, well, if distilled water is no good and the tap water is crap, what can I drink instead? Can we take distilled water and fix it? You can. You can try. However, my advice would be to find clean spring water. We're never going to improve on that because spring water is naturally structured the way our body needs it to be structured because water has different structures. And the water in springs, the water coming up out of the ground, is structured the way the body needs it to be, just like the water in our food is. When we purify water through any means, including distillation, we change that structuring, and now it's 10 to 20 times harder for the body to use it. So even if you can fix the distilled water, it still is not that good for you. And if you fix it, as a lot of people do, by putting lemon or something else into it, your body sees calories or nutrients and says, here comes food. And it takes a third of your energy and shunts it to your digestive tract to prepare for food to come in. So if you're consuming that all day long, your digestive tract is constantly prepared for food when it shouldn't need to do that. You're all invited to come live with me. You're all welcome. Got plenty of space. Where do you get spring water from if you live in London? Go to findaspring.com. There are actually quite a few springs in the UK. I know people, many people, who drive a couple hours to fill up 50 gallons worth of glass containers that they drink out of for the next month. Once a month they make a trip to get pure water. Is your health worth that? I think so. Yeah.
Get spring water delivered to my house.
You get it delivered to your house, so we'll all go live with you. Yeah, so there are companies here in London that deliver clean spring water right to your house. Okay, you don't even have to drive 2 hours to go get it. Okay?
Just to clarify, because I'm not very intelligent, so I need to...
Me either.
So the whole idea of drinking a lot of water is to have a really good crap.
No. First of all, so the question was, the whole idea of drinking a lot of water is to have a really good crap. First of all, I guess if 4 liters a day sounds like a lot of water, then I guess I'm suggesting you drink a lot of water. The important thing is you sip the water, critically important, okay? Your kidneys, if you have 2 healthy kidneys, they can process 1 liter per hour. So if you get up in the morning and guzzle 2 liters of water, your kidneys cannot handle that, and you're losing those electrolytes. Don't do that to yourself. It's not helping you. There are people out there that tell you that you know you're hydrated enough if your pee is clear. Anyone heard this? That's nonsense. If you want clear pee, guzzle a bunch of water. All the water you took in runs right through and runs right back out again. It's not helping you at all. Okay? That's not an indication of anything. So, the purpose of drinking the water your body needs is not to have a good crap. It's to allow your body to start to become more hydrated. Because when your body becomes more hydrated, everything works the way it's supposed to, including your digestive tract. But the most important thing you can do for your eliminative function is eat as close to optimally as possible. So, coming back around for just a second, because I forgot this, I forgot to say this to you. I told you that I'm more hydrated than anyone we've measured. And I've given you some things you can see and understand to understand how that is. What surprises people, though, is when I tell people how much water I drink. How much water do you think I drink to maintain this level of hydration? 3 liters. It's about 3 liters per month. Per month. Because my body is clean, because I've fasted roughly 40 times in the last 25 years, and I eat as close to optimally as possible. So I need to drink very little water to get the water I need. Okay? I said to you earlier that once your body is functioning the way it's intended to, you won't have to drink a lot of water. This is a temporary thing.
Excuse me, can I ask, is there something we can do like a home test to check our hydration level? Because how do we know when we can't afford to come to Costa Rica for 4 to 6 weeks? What can I do personally to check my hydration level?
You could come for 4 weeks.
If you pay me,
You know, it usually works the other way around. Yeah. And I'll be honest with you, not to pick on you, but I'll tell you that, I mean, when someone says to me, I can't afford to do this thing that's going to be the best thing I could do for myself, what I usually say is, I don't think it's important enough to you yet. I've had, so far, over the years, I've had 2 people that I know of sell their home to be able to come to us. And we're not that expensive. How much is it? Well, 4 weeks is around $3,000 US. It's all the water you can drink. And food at the end. There are other places you can go. All the other fasting centers charge at least 50% more than we do. Okay, because what we're committed to is keeping our prices as affordable as possible. But the point is, when there's something that you're committed to, you figure a way to do it. When you have a strong enough why, you figure out how. There's a way to raise the money. We're not talking about a fortune. In the meantime, you can see if you can find a health club or someplace around London that can measure your hydration level for you. There are probably places that can do that. Okay? Yeah?
Just out of curiosity,
have you ever consulted with like a Western medical professional on the fasting method and what have they said about it?
The question was, have I ever consulted with a Western medical professional on the fasting method, and what have they said about it? So far, I have fasted 10 or 11 MDs and many nurses, naturopaths, chiropractors, etc. We had an Austrian MD who's practicing at a hospital in Denmark fast with us on the last session. He was there with us for 6 or 7 weeks, and what he said was, I can't believe what I'm seeing. Because all around him, we were full, and we had 24 people all around him. People were healing from things that he'd been trained it was impossible to heal from.
Have they looked at the scientific elements behind it?
Well, the question was, have they looked at the scientific elements behind it? The 2016 Nobel Prize for Medicine was won by a Japanese doctor who for the last 25 years has been researching how the body eliminates toxins from itself in the absence of food. The science is clear, it's clear. Okay? The science is clear. Most doctors do not understand anything about this. But the question is, who cares? Right? I mean, honestly, they're coming from one very specific viewpoint, which says all we can do is suppress symptoms with drugs or surgery, and not understanding that the body can actually heal. Okay. That's about all the time I have today, folks. It's been a real pleasure being with you here today. If I can help you in any way, don't hesitate to contact me. You have my email address. I'll be around for I guess, most of the rest of the day. So feel free to come talk to me again, and I'll look forward to seeing you later. Take care. Awesome.